Daniel Sports Central, we go over our next schedule preview this offseason, and it's going to be over the Penn State Nittany Lions, a team that was quietly one of the best teams in the country in the 2022 season. This team was 11-2 in 2022, but because of their losses to both Ohio State and Michigan, this team was pretty much counted out of playoff contention heading into November. But this team, they still won the Rose Bowl, went 11-2, nothing short of an outstanding season for Penn State. But all this team being 2023, and whether or not this team could potentially be better than Michigan and Ohio State in the 2023 season is what we'll be talking about here today. We'll be going over the players this team will be losing, who they'll be returning, and previewing their schedule for the first time this offseason. Let's get started with a quick recap of 2022. This team was once again 11-2 overall. Started out the season with a strong win over Purdue. We knew Purdue going into the season was going to be one of the better teams in the Big Ten. Turns out they won the Big Ten West. And so that was a huge win there in week one on the road. I mean, heading into that matchup, that was basically a 50-50 game. Going on the road on a Thursday night, it was going to be a challenging one, and Penn State got the win in the end. They dominated Ohio the next week, beat Auburn on the road 41-12. Took care of Central Michigan, beat Northwestern as well. Then after their bye, they had their first crucial game of the season there against Michigan on the road. We knew the Wolverines were going to be a big contender in the Big Ten. And honestly, going into the season in the Big Ten East, it was Ohio State, it was Michigan, and you had Penn State kind of in the background. And for Penn State, I mean, those games against Michigan and Ohio State were going to be crucial. And Penn State, unfortunately for them, lost both of them. Lost to Michigan 41-17, lost to Ohio State 44-31. So both games weren't, I mean, that Ohio State game, Penn State hung around, but in the end, yeah, the Buckeyes did win it by 13. But otherwise, this team they were dominant down the stretch. After that loss to Ohio State, beat Indiana 45-14, shut out Maryland 30-0, beat Rutgers 55-10, and beat Michigan State 35-16 to finish out the regular season. So this team, they were 11-2, and they were once again easily one of the best teams in the country. They just didn't receive much attention for it, just because of those two losses to Michigan and Ohio State, two teams who eventually ended up in the college football playoff. But they got a chance to play in the Rose Bowl, beat Utah 35-21, an outstanding win to finish out this season. But that said, looking at 2023 now, your returning production going into next season, you do lose your starting quarterback, Sean Clifford, a long-time starting quarterback for this team. He's been around since 2018, been the primary starter since 2019. I would say 2022 was his best season. At least statistically it was. 2,800 yards, 24 touchdowns, over 7 interceptions, and a 64% completion rate for him overall. A great season for Sean Clifford, but you got Drew Aller, who's taken over, a highly rated high school recruit who definitely shows tremendous potential. He brings a lot of upside to this offense, and I'm looking forward to seeing him take over this offense. But yeah, Drew Aller, keep an eye on him. I mean, he didn't play too much in 2022, but when he did, he was excellent, so keep an eye on that. And this team has also got an excellent backfield. I mean, you got Nicholas Singleton coming back. You got Katron Allen coming back. Both running backs combined for over 2,200 yards in the 2022 season and 24 touchdowns. This team they've definitely got one of the best backfields in the country with both of them coming back. I mean, you got two rushers over 1,000 yards of offense last season coming back. That is definitely significant. You'll see them, Penn State, definitely using the backfield a lot next season, that's for sure. And the receiving core, you do lose a few here. Barker Washington's gone. You also lose Mitchell Tinsley. So your top two receivers are gone. You got Keandre Lambert-Smith coming back, your third in the receiving core. But you do lose your fourth in receiving, your top tight end, Brenton Strange. So the receiving core does, I mean, you got some good depth in there. I'm not terribly concerned, but you are losing some experience in that receiving core, that's for sure. You lose one on the offensive line. Overall, the O-line looks pretty good. Defensively, this team looks pretty good as well. You lose two on the defensive line, three in the secondary. So you do lose a couple of your key players defensively. In particular, look at Joey Porter Jr., as well as Jair Brown. You're losing both of them, so that is something to keep in mind. But generally, this team has got excellent returning talent. I really like how this team looks going into 2023, and it brings up the question, is this team a potential dark horse contender in the Big Ten? I think this team is definitely at least a contender in the Big Ten, but of course, when you got Ohio State and Michigan playing so well right now, especially Michigan, they have really risen up the past couple of seasons. I mean, it's a brutal division there for Penn State. I mean, in the Big Ten East, when you're behind Ohio State and Michigan, I mean, if Penn State was in the Big Ten West, I mean, they would have ran that division last season for sure. And in the end, they ended up being third place in the Big Ten East. So the divisions in the Big Ten are obviously very uneven. It's just, yeah, for Penn State, it's just a really competitive conference in the Big Ten. So we'll see. I mean, obviously those Michigan and Ohio State games are going to be crucial, definitely going into 2023 as well. That does not change. So those two games are definitely ones you got to mark on your calendar, because those are the big ones. You got to win those if you want any chance of being a true national contender. But your transfer portal and recruiting going into next season, this team hasn't been terribly active in the transfer portal. Not too many big changes. You do lose a quarterback, Velo, who is off to Pitt. Dante Cephas is coming in from Kent State. Expect him to have an immediate impact. Malik McLean is also coming in from Florida State. So you had some depth, the receiving core there. You lose defensive tackle Malik McNeil, who's in the transfer portal. Edge rusher Rodney McGraw, Jamari Budden, linebackers in the transfer portal as well. You got Storm Duck coming in, defensive back from North Carolina. And you lose Marquise Wilson, defensive back, who's in the transfer portal. Recruiting-wise, this team is excellent, though. They're 13th in the country, second in the Big Ten. You got 18 4-stars coming in and 5 3-stars. So recruiting overall is outstanding for Penn State going to next year. And on the future forecast meter, I got this team at a 9 out of 10. Many teams that I've been previewing are at a 9 out of 10. But of course, I mean, many of these teams are at the same level. I think this team has got a bright future. I think Penn State, I just don't see this team dropping off anytime soon. Based on the recruiting, based on Drew Aller and everything, things look really good for Penn State. I've got them at a 9 out of 10, or a 90% chance of an outstanding future. In your schedule going to next season, so you got West Virginia in week 1. That is a home game on September 2nd. West Virginia, one of the worst teams in the Big 12 last season. And you got Delaware at home after that. Illinois on the road to start off your conference slate. Then Iowa at home after that. Northwestern on the road to finish out September. So you got your 3 Big Ten West opponents back to back to back at the beginning of the season. Something interesting about this schedule. Oh, and also you got UMass just randomly in the middle of the season there at home on the 14th. So you got a cakewalk there before your Ohio State showdown in Columbus on the 21st. Then you got Indiana at home to finish out October. Then in November, you got Maryland on the road, Michigan at home, huge game there. Rutgers on the 18th, and then Michigan State to finish out the regular season on the road. So looking at September here, West Virginia, I mean, you should take care of them. I'm going to put it in yellow just because it's in week 1 and it's also against a Power 5 opponent. But I think West Virginia probably remains one of the worst teams in the Big 12 in 2023. I just don't see much potential in them. So I think I'll favor you there. I'll definitely favor you against Delaware. Illinois on the road. Fighting Illini, a really interesting team in 2022, had very low expectations heading into the season, and they turned out to be one of the best teams in the Big Ten West. Honestly, I mean, I think in the end, Illinois was the best team in the Big Ten West just based on, I mean, just as a whole, the entire season, their defense was one of the best in the country. And what Brett Bielema has done, I do think Illinois is back in 2023. Very well could win the Big Ten West in 2023. It sounds crazy, but it's super. I think it's true. So going on the road there in week 3, that could be a trap game there, but I do think I'll favor you there right now. Then you got Iowa coming to town. Iowa should be where they always are, 7-9 wins. So I'll favor you. Honestly, I mean, I think Illinois in the end was the best team in the Big Ten West. I mean, I know Purdue won the division, but it was a super competitive division, and Illinois' defense, that team as a whole, I mean, they were a solid team last season, and what Brett Bielema has done, wouldn't be surprised one bit to see them once again in the conversation for the West Division. So on the road there in week 3, that could potentially be a trap game, but I do want to favor you there right now. Then you got Iowa at home on the 23rd. Iowa should be right around where they always are, I think. 7-9 wins. So I'll favor you there in that matchup as well. And then Northwestern on the road to finish out September. Should take care of them. Not expecting much out of them. So your ceiling's 5-0 heading into October. Floor is 3-2, just in case if things don't go as planned with Drew Aller and if this team is a bit of a bust. But I just don't anticipate that. I think 4 or 5 wins is very much, and probably 5 wins is most likely heading into October. You got UMass, easy win there. Ohio State on the road. This is a huge game. It's in Columbus. I mean, this is And we know how crucial the matchups were against Michigan and Ohio State last season. And that's why this team in the end wasn't a college football playoff contender. But I just don't know. Going on the road to Columbus, it's going to be a tough one. And the Buckeyes next season, I expect to still remain a big contender. So I'll favor Ohio State there right now, but I do think Penn State is competitive. And then Indiana on the 28th, you take care of them. So your ceiling's still 8-0, I think, heading into November. Your floor is 5-3, just in case. That's the worst case scenario if this team just isn't quite as good as anticipated. And then November, a huge month. Maryland on the road. This could be a challenging one. I think Maryland next season definitely is a sneaky team in the Big Ten. They could upset a couple of teams, but I do think I'll favor you there. Michigan at home. This game I went back and forth on. This is a 50-50 game here. Coin toss. It's so far out. It's tough to predict. I'm going to favor Michigan right now just because of how well they're playing. They've still got some excellent experience going to next season. Wouldn't be surprised one bit to see Michigan make it to a third straight college football playoff. But I will be favoring Michigan there right now. Once again, though, it's super close. I think that's pretty much a coin toss at this point. Rutgers, I think you take care of them, and then Michigan State on the road. I mean, it's a rivalry game, so I do think it's gonna be close on the road, but I will favor you there right now. So your ceiling's 11-1 heading into next season. I considered putting 12-0, but just because of, I think it's a challenging schedule. You got both Ohio State and Michigan on the schedule. I just feel like I feel like you're gonna lose at least one of those games between Ohio State and Michigan. I mean, you could win both, but at the same time, the Big Ten is such a competitive conference. I mean, is this team truly able to go 12-0? I just don't know if this team is ready for that quite yet. But with Drew Aller, if he can gain some experience, and he will, I mean, Penn State could very well be a big-time contender, national contender in the years to come. I just don't know if it's 2023 quite yet. But still, I mean, your ceiling's 11-1. Your floor is 8-4. That's the worst that you could possibly be. I think 10-11 wins is a really good estimate heading into next season. And once again, wouldn't be surprised one bit to see Penn State at least win against either Ohio State or Michigan. And if it's going to be one of those games, I'd probably say it's going to be a Michigan game just because it's at home. And Penn State is obviously a brutal place to play. But that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Penn State. And I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.